We have been looking at the Sāmaññaphala Sutta, which means the fruits of the ascetic life, or the fruits of monasticism, if you wish. Second sutta of the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha. And it's one of these wonderful suttas, marvelous suttas that has talks about the entire gradual training. The gradual training is basically the whole training from the moment you hear the word of the Buddha until you become an arahant, fully awakened at the end. This training in this particular sutta is kind of expanded to the max. Yeah, it's kind of the long version of this training. And it's also encapsulated in the story, kind of this grand story of King Ajātasattu, who killed his father, and after killing his father he felt a lot of remorse and regret, and so he goes to the Buddha to try to find some way of alleviating all his bad conscience. And so it kind of has this beautiful narrative around it, and then you have this powerful teaching that comes out of that. So he goes to the Buddha and asks, what are the fruits? Yeah, in other words, what's the benefits of becoming a monastic? Yeah, why? How come you guys are being monastics? Does that make any sense? Something like that. Why do you do these things? And then, of course, the Buddha gives this long discourse in reply to that, what the monastic life really is about. And this gradual training then always starts with the meeting of the Buddha, or the meeting with the Dhamma. It's the same thing. And then once you meet the Buddha and the Dhamma, that is where right view arises. It is the idea, I think, wait a minute, there's something true about this. So you hear the word of the Buddha, you meet the Buddha, and then you kind of come to an agreement with that, and that is the right view, is the beginning of the path. So this whole gradual training thing is works in parallel with the Noble Eightfold Path, right? So it has the same structure. The Noble Eightfold Path begins with right view, ends with Samma Samadhi, right stillness. And it is a progression. Right view first, ending with Samma Samadhi, one factor leading to the next one. And this gradual training is like an expansion of that. You get all the details about what right view really is about, starting out with the qualities of the Buddha. That's like the beginning of right view, hearing the Buddha. And then, once you have heard the Buddha, well, then you make a commitment to the practice, to the path. And that commitment to the practice in this particular sutta means you become a monastic. Because this is about the fruits of the monastic life. So obviously here you have to become a monastic. So that's the second factor, right intention, right thought. You think, maybe I should become a nun or a monk. Okay, so you become a monk or nun, right intention. And then once you become a monastic, then the morality, the ethics that arise, that are part of the monastic practice, then follow as a consequence from that. Right action, right speech, or right speech and right action. Which one comes first, right speech or right action? Interesting. Is that interesting or not? It's strange, because in the Noble Eightfold Path you have Samma Vaca comes before Samma Kammanta, so right speech comes before right action. But in the gradual training we're seeing now, right action comes first, then right speech. So what's going on there? How can it be different? And I think the reason it's different is because it probably doesn't really matter. It is not very important whether you do one first or the other one first. But generally speaking, in the suttas, right action comes first, and the Noble Eightfold Path is like an exception to that pattern. Maybe on purpose, maybe done precisely to show that actually the sequence is not so important. It's about morality. So we have had a look at right action, and we've had a look at the first part of right speech, which is about avoiding lying, speaking truthfully. This is what we had looked at last time, what you see right there. I'm not sure if anyone here can remember last time. Can you remember last time, Ananda? Not sure. It's a long time ago. I think we have been working on the sutta for a couple of years already, so it's kind of, you had to be really committed to these sutta classes to kind of follow through on these things. But I think it's very valuable to be able to contemplate the word of the Buddha. So I'm really happy we have these sutta classes actually here. So we have had a look at lying, and now we're going to have a look at the other factors of right speech. And the first one of these is non-divisive speech, or divisive speech. I'm not never sure how to pronounce that word, but divisive or divisive. So you're giving up divisive speech. Yeah, let's have a look at how it is expressed here. They don't repeat in one place what they heard in another, so as to divide people against each other. Instead, they reconcile those who are divided, supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. This pertains to their ethics. This is part of the ethics, if you like, part of the sila. So this is the second factor of the idea of right speech in Buddhism. You will notice that in the 5 precepts, you only have musavada, veramani, sikkhapadang, samadhiyami. That's the 5 precepts. Yeah, it's only about lying. But right speech is more than just lying. Yeah. But the fact that lying is singled out in the 5 precepts means that lying is especially bad, especially problematic, and that is why it is there. So the 5 precepts are not really about right speech, they are specifically about lying. But then you find there are other factors as well, and usually the way it works in the suttas is that there's always a sequence. So lying comes first, it means that it is most serious. Divisive speech, surprisingly, is the second one. Yeah, it's also quite serious. The idea of dividing people from each other, creating disharmony, fake news, or whatever it is, that you see all the time, all of this kind of problem. Maybe fake news is more like lying. I'm not sure what it is. Kind of bit of both. Probably it's really bad speech, actually. And so this idea of creating disharmony in our society, wherever it is actually really problematic according to this. And I always like how these things are phrased. The idea you reconcile those who are divided, supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. It's kind of very, I don't know, it has a very wholesome, nice feel to it, this whole idea. And you will notice that some of these things are quite hard to consistently speak in ways that promote harmony. It's very easy to talk negatively about other people. It's very easy to forget that every time you talk negative about someone, you're actually creating disharmony between the person you're talking to and the person you're talking about. Automatically you create disharmony because you're leaving a bad impression about the other person. So we need to this is quite difficult. We need to learn to speak in the right way. And what is interesting about so many of these things is that our habits are very, very powerful. And because the habits are so powerful, it is very easy to always fall back into the wrong speech habits that we have from the past. It happens very easily. Okay, if you have a good day, it's very easy to be harmonious and kind to everyone. Yes, really. But then one day you're really grumpy and negative. I don't know if you have those days. I certainly have those days. I feel really, today I hate everyone. Actually, that's actually quite rare. I don't really hate everyone, but some days not as happy as other days. Life is a bit like this. I hope I'm not the only one. If I'm the only one, makes me feel really bad. So please say that you are with me on this. And so on those negative days, then the other bad habits that you have, they tend to come out. And then you may say something bad about somebody. Today I really can't stand this person. Please don't come into. I don't want to see you. No, look this way. And you don't want to deal with somebody on certain days. And that is a very powerful moment, because the moment that you actually feel that today I don't want to speak in the right way, you can feel your mind is kind of slightly negative. Things aren't quite right. That is an opportunity to learn to see things differently. That is where the real practice is. And very often it is not enough just to force yourself to speak in the right way. It's not enough to say, yes, I'm going to use willpower to speak in the right way. Very often what you have to do is you have to contemplate, reflect on what is wrong with the way you are thinking, and learn to think differently, perceive differently, see the world in a new way. And that is how you make real progress on the path. It is good, of course, to just make sure you don't say the bad things. It is good to just use that little bit of willpower or whatever. But really the most powerful way is to reflect, why is this happening to me here? Why am I thinking like this? Even if you are a bit grumpy, you don't really have to take it out on the world. You just feel the dukkha in your heart. We all go through times that are difficult. And you feel the dukkha, but you realize, okay, I'm still going to do the right thing. Why? It's good for me, it's good for others. So this is kind of where so much of the practice is, not just trying hard to do the right thing, but reflecting about this. Why? What am I getting wrong? Why is it that I incline in this way? And it's always a habit from the past, and you want to overcome those habits and look at things in a new way. So that is a divisive speech for you. So the second factor of the wrong kinds of speech, and you give that up, and of course you speak the opposite. You speak harmony, things that bring people together. It's like, okay, people in the Buddha society, you know that people here are good at heart, they're trying their best, everyone is doing their best. In fact, it is one of the things that I think everyone in the world is doing their best. Even the most kind of terrible people, they're actually doing their best. It's just that their best isn't very good, but actually it is their best. Because we can only do what we are conditioned into doing. And because of that, everyone is worthy of compassion. Everyone is worthy of, encouragement in the right way. And instead of denouncing them or saying bad things about them, we see the good aspect. Then we encourage them to change whatever behavior isn't right, and then kind of we're on the right track. So we encourage that harmony between people, encourage us to work together in this way. So please feel free to comment or ask questions as we go along. Any comments on divisive speech? Disharmony? Harmony. Chitasi, is that you? I can't see you properly without my glasses is what makes it kind of, I needed some new glasses, that's basically the reality. Good, nice to see you back again. Ananda, please.
Sorry, thank you. But say about something that person has done or without referring to the person. Say, for instance, like someone distorts in a congregation, someone distorts the Buddha's teaching. And then you see that a lot of friends are being, what shall I say, taken for a ride almost. And because of this, divisive speech, Pisuna Vacha or Parusa Vacha, both of them fall into that category, and you keep silent. But in the process, you let others believe something that the Buddha did not say. This is a conundrum. So, and I was in that situation once, actually a couple of times, and not here, not anywhere in the Buddhist society places. But what do you do in that situation, Ajahn?
I think in that kind of situation, you just say, you explain what, according to you, is the right way of looking at things. This is the Dhamma. You don't, as you said, you don't mention names necessarily, but you just present the Dhamma in the right way here. And I think that actually is very important. It is important that we speak out if the Dhamma is being misrepresented. It's important if we speak out if people are being abused, if there's abuse going on. So whenever there is danger in that sense, of course, then we should speak out. But we try to speak out in a way that still preserves the harmony to the best of our ability. So it is a bit of a conundrum, but you're right.
Thank you.
Please. Okay.
Ajahn Brahmali, you're talking about right speech here, okay? Right speech. And then the thing is, you started with lying. What came to my mind, is the opposite, okay? In the Dhammapada. In the Buddha was saying, a person who lies, and is not sorry or remorse that the person is lying, there's nothing wicked that the person can do.
Good, yeah. But I think what we should do is let's try to keep it to questions rather than comments, yeah, because otherwise we're going to be here for a long time. So I think, make short questions is probably the best way to go about things. Yeah, thank you. Over here, please, the question. Yeah, so what is your name again? Sorry, I forget. Anne. Okay, thank you. Excellent.
I just wanted to say, surely if that person is making those negative contacts or incorrect speech, would that not affect the person who is speaking that way as well?
Of course. And this is kind of this is sort of the point of the spiritual path, is because it is a personal practice. The main reason here is not so much about other people, it's about you. You are blocking your own spiritual practice. Yeah, so that is the problem. In fact, one of the, to me, definitions of what is a kind of Buddhist or a spiritual way of being is that it's good for you and good for the other person. It should always be both. If it's just good for the other person and neutral or bad for you, then it's like you are not looking after yourself properly. And if it's bad for the other person, you're not looking after the other person. So it'll always be good for both. And that's why greed is no good, anger is no good, because all of these things are bad for at least one of the two. Yeah. So absolutely, yeah. All right, let's go on to the third aspect of wrong speech or right speech, depending on which way you look at it. You give up harsh speech. So this is right speech. And this is parusa vacha. Parusa means like rough or harsh speech. And this is what happens when you give up harsh speech. They speak in a way that's mellow, pleasing to the ear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable to the people, to most people, I think is the best way of putting it there. Bahujana is the Pali, means many people. This pertains to their ethics. So we all know what harsh speech is. It's when you kind of swear at someone, or you use loud voice, or you tell someone off in harsh terms or whatever. We know what that feels like. It's not very nice. It's nice to hear people who speak in a kind of gentle and kind way. And so this is what this is about. But it's interesting, this is only the third kind of right speech or wrong speech. Yeah, after divisive speech, after lying, then comes harsh speech. So it is not kind of, maybe it's bad, but not perhaps as bad as the other ones. And again, it's kind of very beautifully put. Yeah, the way the Buddha puts this here, mellow, pleasing to the ear. Yeah, the ear is happy. Kanna, sukha, quite literally, kanna is ear, sukha is happiness. It's kind of nice way of putting it, isn't it? Ear happiness. I like that. Going to the heart, hadayagama, literally means going to the heart. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. When I gave the talk on Friday, I made this point that I don't think people really change all that much, whether it is people now compared to the time of the Buddha, or people really in any historical period. We basically want the same thing, yeah. And you can see some of these expressions for what we like to hear are exactly the same. Going to the heart, hadayagama is exactly the same expression across 2,500 years, very different cultures. Yeah, there's something deep down. We are very kind of similar. There isn't really any big differences there. Polite, likable, agreeable to most people. This pertains to the ethics. Again, be careful when you get out of the bed on the wrong side. It's very difficult. Some days very difficult to speak gently. Some days you don't want to speak gently. You want to get onto the roof of your house and shout out to the world. Yeah, don't do that, please. It's a bad idea. This is what this is saying. So this is the opposite of parusa vacha. You give up the parusa vacha. Everyone happy with that one? Yeah? If you're not happy with it, then contemplate it, because this is what the Buddha says. They give up talking nonsense. This is sampapalapa. And I'm not sure if nonsense is quite the best translation in my opinion. I personally would have preferred a different translation, like idle chatter or frivolous speech or something like that, because it's not necessarily nonsense. It's more like things that are not really very meaningful. Yeah, talking about the weather or the news or whatever, things that are not really all that conducive to the spiritual practice. This is really what this means. And so it's quite limited. For a monastic, it's quite limited what ideally you should speak about. In reality, monastics are like most people. Sometimes they talk about things that are maybe not so important. Other times they talk about the Dhamma and the training and these kind of things. So the idea is to avoid the idle chatter. Of course, this does not mean that we are not friendly with each other. I make this point every time. We should still be friendly. It doesn't mean that we should kind of remain completely silent and then just talk pure Dhamma, kind of every time, because that's impossible. It's also about being friendly. It's about being approachable. And the Buddha does this in the suttas. He will often speak to people, start out by asking, do you have any problems getting alms food? Are you keeping well? Have you traveled from afar? So you can see there's a concern for your well-being that comes first. And the Buddha has that concern all the time. And so you start off in that way, then people relax, they feel at ease, and when they relax and feel at ease, then he goes on and kind of teaches the Dhamma, or says what he has to say here. Their words are timely, true, and meaningful, in line with the teaching and the training here. They say things at the right time that are valuable, reasonable, succinct, beneficial. This pertains to their ethics. So this is the fourth kind of right speech, so it is probably the least important one. The other ones are more important. Here it is more kind of just you're filling your mind with all kind of stuff which is not really useful. And of course that's going to be detract from your peace of mind, detract from your mindfulness, detract from your ability to meditate and to achieve samadhi. So this is the downside of this. But it's not terribly bad. You don't have any bad intentions necessarily. So you speak words that are timely, at the right time. You know when to speak. You don't speak, if you're going to talk to somebody, it's a good time for you and a good time for the other person. You don't allow yourself to be kind of compelled by your defilements, by your anger and desire. These are very compelling, powerful forces of the mind that tend to make us speak when we shouldn't really be speaking here. Which at the right time and place is actually very important. And then you talk meaningfully, atta sanghita, I think it is. Atta is like the goal or the purpose or the benefit or the advantage of things, connected with all of those things. That is the right way of speaking here. So do something that's beneficial for yourself and the other person. And it's true, of course, at the right time, in line with the teaching. That's the Dhamma. The training here is Vinaya. And one of the important meanings of the word Vinaya is not just the monastic rules. Very often Vinaya is understood to mean the monastic rules, like the Vinaya Pitaka, but the word Vinaya also has this idea of being the complement of the Dhamma. Dhamma is the teaching, Vinaya is the training, the theory and practice coming together here. They say things that are valuable. Nidanavati. Nidana is a treasure. Beautiful idea. You say things that are to be treasured. There's something beautiful about that. You notice how sometimes people, they will take some of Ajahn Brahm's sayings, they will put them together in a little book. It'll be like one-liners, because one-liners are kind of memorable. That is like the treasured word. Someone is listening to Ajahn Brahm. Oh, that's really beautiful. They catch a phrase, something that's really powerful. I want to remember that. Let's make a book out of it. These are kind of the valuable teachings, little nuggets of gold that kind of come when you talk a lot like Ajahn Brahm, and Ajahn Brahm has this one of the things I always kind of liked about Ajahn Brahm, he has, first of all, he's very sharp. His sharpness has gone down a little bit because of old age and this kind of things, getting a bit older. But he's essentially a very sharp person and also very imaginative. And that combined with the depth of meditation and insight makes sometimes he kind of says things that come out of left field, things you haven't really heard before, and it's actually very interesting. Yeah. It's always worthwhile listening. Yeah. And so this is kind of the idea. You read the suttas and you think, wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. I never thought of that before. And you write it down on a piece of paper. Yeah. And you take it in your pocket, you carry it with you, and you put it on a door. You wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you see in the morning. Yeah. And then you remind yourself of these sayings. Just be kind, yeah, or whatever, yeah, something like that. It is reasonable, the idea that something is based on reasons. The way it is explained in the commentary is that it has you say something with similes. You use similes to kind of make a point, or you use reasons to make a point. In other words, it's backed up. It is something that is rational and makes sense. It is not kind of something that stands on its, doesn't really have any support by anything else. It is succinct, yeah. It doesn't kind of go on forever, and it is beneficial. So that is the not talking nonsense, not talking sampapalapa. The rubbish talk is one way of translating this. Everyone happy with that? Yeah? Okay. If you're not happy, please raise your hand. So, all right. Okay, so that is the right speech. I'm going through it fairly quickly because I've talked about these things many times before, and I guess you could say much more. You could go through each word in more detail or whatever. But the idea is just to get a feeling for what these things mean. We don't have to go through everything in great detail every time. Eddie, yeah. You want to say something? Yeah. Okay. You want to add to the teachings? Yeah. All right.
I'm just trying to get the real situation,
Yeah.
Ajahn Brahmali. Say if you encounter a situation, whereby you meet aggressive person, person who are not, nice thing, we can't be giving the right speech and all the good things to the person. So we have to use our discretion, and how to deal with it. And then remember, I've said this before. You acknowledge the thing. During Buddha's time, he was in the sutta. He was walking across a household, and this person asked him, "Come in, you come in." He went in. Then when everyone said, "You out," he went out. After the third time, Buddha says, "I'm not going in." Gave him a lecture, and he walked away. Buddha walked away. So the gist behind that is you have to use your discretion in dealing with things. You are not a walkover. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean these are all nice things. Yeah, definitely. Right speech, but we have to use our discretion sometimes you have to put a bit of little force this thing too, to show that you're a Buddhist, but you're not a walkover.
Sure, but that's true. Maybe sometimes that is true, that sometimes you have to be careful. But the vast majority of the time when we use wrong speech, the vast majority of the time is not that kind of situation. The vast majority is when we get upset for no real reason. And that is what we should focus on. That's what matters. It is rare that people, that someone kind of tells you to go in and out of the cave or whatever. It's not that often.
Thank you.
So, yeah. If you can phrase it into a question, it's better, and then we can kind of discuss it. Yeah. Okay. So that is then the kind of main two aspects of ethics. And then now we come into more details about ethical conduct that you find in the gradual training. And again, a lot of this pertains to monastic life and not so much to lay life, but it's still interesting, I think. So we're going to go through it. So let's see. They refrain from injuring plants and seeds. This is one of those things in ancient India, that plants and seeds were considered to have one-facultied beings. In other words, they could experience the world or feel the world to some extent. And so the Buddha laid down these rules. And so for monastics, we don't injure plants and seeds, generally speaking. It is not entirely clear whether this is bad karma or not. There's no real kind of reference to it ever being bad karma. It's not really killing living beings. Living beings are called pana tipata. Pana means a breathing being, and plants don't breathe in that ordinary sense. I don't think that in ancient India plants were considered as breathing. these days we might consider plants as breathing because they use obviously carbon dioxide and that kind of thing for the photosynthesis. But I think in those days it was different. So anyway, this is like a monastic thing. Yeah. They eat. It's kind of interesting that the Buddha lays down these rules. It's mostly in response to the views of that society, and not so much because it is a negative, a bad in its own right in terms of bad karma or considered ethically wrong necessarily. Yeah. They eat in one part of the day, abstaining from eating at night and food at the wrong time. So this is ekabhatika. Ekabhatika means either one meal or eating in one part of the day. Not entirely clear what it exactly means in this context. It's explained in the commentary as meaning eating in one part of the day because that fits with the rules, the patimokkha rules that we have as monastics, that you have to eat between dawn and midday. Yeah? But it could also mean that you have one meal a day. Yeah? So again, this is monastic. So when you are on 8 precepts, basically you are following this as well. Yeah. So when you come to the 9-day retreats or the weekend retreats, or maybe some of you come here on the Poya days or whatever, you keep the 8 precepts. Then this is one of them, the one that you would keep normally. They avoid seeing shows of dancing, singing and music. They refrain from beautifying and adorning themselves with garlands, fragrance and makeup. Yeah, so you can see here there's a lot of things here that are not directly related to immorality or ethics, but are related more to the idea of restraint. The idea of not doing things that take the mind into the world and have an interest in worldly things. So not too much interest in food, not too much interest in entertainment, not too much interest in what you look like, but kind of withdrawing from all of that in the world. And especially these last two, especially the last one here about beautifying and adorning the body, this is very much something that it relates too much to the sense of self very often. We are concerned about what we look like in the presence of other people. But that is problematic on the Buddhist path, because we don't want to be too concerned about the thing, because it really distracts the mind from just being peaceful and being at ease inwardly. As long as the sense of self expresses itself in a certain way, it is difficult to let go properly and to be fully peaceful. So it's nice to let go of these things and, kind of just wear some nice baggy clothes when you go on retreat, so you're nice and comfortable when you meditate, and you kind of fade away a little bit. One of the reasons why these precepts are powerful is because they approximate to how the arahants live. If you look at the arahants, the fully awakened people in the world, from the time of the Buddha to the present day, when you look at how they live according to this way all the time. They're not interested in beautifying themselves. They don't have a sense of self anymore. And also they're not interested in entertainment, we're seeing here. And the reason why they're not interested in entertainment, because they have a far greater happiness. To them, entertainment is just a distraction. It makes the mind busy. It disturbs the mind, and it stops you from actually attaining the deep samadhi and the real happinesses of the mind. So we are kind of approaching the way of the arahant. If you read the sutta, especially in the Digha Nikaya, it talks about the 8 precepts in a number of places, and this is precisely the point they make. They make this point that this is what the arahants live, for the whole of their life. And today, on the Uposatha day, the Poya day, the Uposatha day, I will follow the example of the arahants. It's kind of it's beautiful. It's a very lofty ideal that we're following when we're practicing these things. And of course, if you do follow the ideal of the arahants, it means that your mind too is inclining towards those things. Isn't that kind of nice? Today I'm practicing like the arahants. There's something very powerful about that. I'm kind of walking in the footsteps of the arahants, doing my best. Okay, I'm not an arahant yet, but maybe one day I will be there. There's something very noble and beautiful about that. But of course, if you are going to do it, You have to do it in a way that it comes naturally to you. Not force yourself, I'm going to have to eat only one meal a day, or that's really difficult or terrible, and you think about food all day, all of these kind of things. That's not such a good idea. Remember, we had one lady, she came to Jhana Grove, and she told me that, at lunch, I'm really worried I'm not going to get enough to eat. I'm really concerned. I'm not sure how to kind of deal with this. And then I think about food in the afternoon and all these kind of things, and what to do with this. And she was just afraid, because you're not used to eating in the evening. You think it's going to be really difficult. Actually, it is not all that difficult once you get used to it. So you just have to kind of trust that it's going to be all right. So this is the idea. You just kind of are content with this. This is the right practice, and because it is right, you just do it, and then you do it in a peaceful way, and then it enhances your meditation. It makes your mindfulness more powerful, because you're focusing less on the sensory aspect of the world, and instead moving towards the mind instead, towards the inner qualities rather than the outer qualities. They avoid high and luxurious beds. So this is the 8th of the 8 precepts. So this is kind of the way it is described in the suttas. It sounds very luxurious. We'll come to that in a second when we see what it looks like. They avoid receiving gold and money. So this is the precepts of the Samaneras. If you become a novice monk or a novice nun, you don't receive gold or money anymore. So you are cut off from the idea of buying or getting what you want in life. You kind of live on what people offer you and support you. And usually people are so kind and so supportive that you have plenty anyway. So it's kind of marvelous. Then you avoid your raw grains, raw meat, women and girls, male and female bond servants, goats and sheep, chicken and pigs, elephants and cows, horses and mares, and fields and land. So what is this all about? So what this is about, these are the signs of wealth. Wealth is usually measured in these kind of things. So things like raw grain, you store it up. Gold and money, you store it up. These are things to do with wealth. Raw meat, I'm not so sure about that one. Apparently that does not exist in other versions of this sutta, in the Chinese translation. So maybe it is, I'm not sure how original it is, but anyway, it is there. Women and girls, presumably this refers to like servants, Male and female bond servants, these are also servants, but maybe servants of a slightly lower class, more like a little bit like slaves or something like that. And then all these animals, that is also a sign of wealth. You have so many various animals. This was how wealth was often measured at that time in India. The Brahmins would normally count their cows, and they would kind of measure their wealth according to how many cows they had, how much cattle they had. And of course, all of these other things. If you had elephants, a king always had many elephants, right? And so a king would have all of these kind of things. Horses, absolutely. And of course, fields and land as well is how you measure wealth. And that's true in the present day. People have a lot of holdings of land, a large property or whatever. People often measure their wealth in that way, the size of your house, the size of your property, and these kind of things. So as a monastic, you don't want to have any. You're supposed to be poor, right? You're supposed not to have anything here. So you give everything up. So when you ordain, one of the things you do is give up all your wealth. This is kind of standard phrase also in this gradual training. We have already spoken about that before, but it's probably a long time ago. But it's in there. You give up wealth, whether much or little. You give it all up. And this is part of that. And that's why you give it up. Have a simple life. Life of no concerns, no anxiety. One of the great things about this, there's so much less anxiety in life when you have no money. There's nothing anyone can steal from you. When you go to India and you get all these beggars kind of coming after you, and you don't have anything to give them, and you can't. There's nothing you can do, and these beggars they kind of get exasperated because you never give anything. And it's a nice story. This story you probably heard it before, but it's a really beautiful story. The beggars in India are incredibly, they never really give up. For those of you who've been to India, they follow after you, follow after you, follow after you. And they know that if they harass you enough, eventually you might give in. You have to be really tough to kind of not give in, because after a while you sort of, okay, whatever, just want to get rid of you. So here is something, And it's kind of difficult to have a compassion as well sometimes when people are so persistent, But of course, compassion is the right way of thinking about it. So as a monastic, you don't have any money, so they follow after you. And Ajahn Brahmali was in India, and he figured out the one way to get rid of those beggars. And that's a really beautiful story. So this beggar was following him. Ajahn Brahmali said, "Look, I don't have any money." He didn't understand. He was Indian. He was bakshish, bakshish, but I don't have any money. Bakshish, bakshish, I don't have any bakshish. Bakshish, bakshish. And so then, this is kind of beautiful. Ajahn Brahmali did. He kind of took this beggar. And he picked him up and gave him a hug. And of course, when you pick up a beggar and give them a hug, they realize that that's a kind of a human connection that you create right there. And the moment you do that, then of course, that beggar kind of realizes, okay, this is the wrong person to ask money from. So sometimes one of these kind of things that suddenly arise in your mind, this kind of idea, okay, this is what I should do. And of course, it works beautifully. So, got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I thought I might as well bring that in there. So, you refrain from all of these things, you give up all your wealth, and then comes another sequence of things, and this last sequence of things is not actually found in the Chinese parallel to this sutta. And so this may have been added at some point, maybe coming from the commentary or something like that. And when you look at it, you will see that it is a little bit, doesn't quite fit. What we have seen so far has very much to do with restraint, with giving up wealth and these kind of things. But what comes now is a little bit different. So they refrain from running errands and messages, buying and selling, falsifying weights, metals and measures, bribery, fraud, cheating and duplicity, mutilation, murder, abduction, banditry, plunder and violence. This pertains to the ethics. So it's kind of obvious that you're not supposed to do these things. We have already talked about right action, so that we shouldn't murder people. It kind of, you'd wonder why it is there. So it kind of makes sense that this has been added as a kind of add-on. Because these things, to my mind, are just a little bit too obvious. Once you have seen what we have seen before, this doesn't really add all that much to it. But anyway, there it is. And you can see the running errands and messages there. This is, very often you will find that monastics will not run errands and messages, because this is found in this way. Buying and selling is also not allowed for monastics. There are specific rules about this. And so they kind of fit with the monastic rules. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. So anything to be said about this? Anyone have any questions about this? Yeah, Moon. I think I'll just ask for the sake of the audience online, what is wrong with running errands and messages? And the idea here is that you do it as a service to a king or to someone else, and it becomes almost like a kind of employment. And very often it becomes, you do this and you get something in return. So you're basically getting engaged in the world. That's the problem. But you're supposed to be aloof from the world. You're not supposed to be engaged in these things. But of course, there are times when it is okay. For example, if it is a message between two monastics or between a lay person and a monastic, within the Buddhist circle, then there's no real problem with this. It's more like a worldly engagement. You're getting engaged with worldly things and not really withdrawing properly. And sometimes it becomes a kind of livelihood as well, which is not really ideal. Yes, please, Ananda.
They are all under the ethics. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
They are all under the ethics, but these all giving up land and all that, not beautifying all that.
Yeah.
does it fall clearly under the Nekamma Sankappa, giving up?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Because Nekamma Sankappa, second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, the intention to renounce, or to give up. And basically it is the intention to withdraw from the sensory world. Nekamma is the opposite of karma. Karma is the five sense world. So you are withdrawing your interest from the five sense world. And all of these things are, precisely as you say, they're really related to that five sense world. So it is actually renunciation.
Even though they are said they are part of the ethics, but really in the Noble Eightfold Path, it will fall under the more easily fall under the Nekamma Sankappa. I would argue that in a broader sense, Nekamma Sankappa is also part of ethics in a broader sense. So, all right. So then that the shorter section on ethics is finished. I have bad news for you. That's the short section on ethics. Now comes the middle section of ethics. Then comes the long section of ethics. So you are in for a kind of long time here just talking about ethics. Now, what is interesting about this is that what we have seen so far, this is the standard explanation of ethics in the suttas, or in the gradual training, I should say. And what comes next now is really just a further elaboration on what we have seen already. It doesn't really add very much. And so for that reason, people have studied this and they have asked the question, well, if it's just an elaboration, it sounds more like a commentary than actually the original teaching, because something that elaborates on something else, that's usually a commentary. And so one of my monastic colleagues, Venerable Analayo, he did a comparative study of this particular section with other sections in other traditions, Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan, whatever. I can't remember exactly what sources he had. And he came to the conclusion that indeed these sections that are coming now, the middle section and the long sections, originally were commentaries that then somehow got included into the sutta in this way. And you can imagine that originally these suttas were transmitted orally. So you had the suttas were transmitted orally, and then you had the commentaries that were transmitted orally. So how do you keep these things apart when these are all transmitted orally? And so you can imagine very easily that sometimes the commentary would make its way into the sutta because it was hard to keep them apart. And this is actually what we find. Sometimes you find commentarial material making its way into the sutta, because it's not really clear the exact boundaries of one and the other. And so it's not very common, but it happens occasionally. And the way to find that out is to then to compare suttas in various traditions, and you can see where things aren't, things are not the same, then you find these kind of differences. And it's important, however, not to overstate this. This does not mean that there is a big problem and we can never find the real Dhamma, anything like that. The vast majority of the suttas are still pretty much exactly the same between the various traditions. But occasionally, like here, you find these additional things. It doesn't really affect our understanding of the Dhamma so much. It's just sometimes it's kind of handy to be aware of that. So because it is more commentarial in nature, I'm going to have a fairly quick look at this middle section and the long section. So it's going to be quite fast. So anyway, here we go. The middle section of ethics. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in injuring plants and seeds. So they engage in it. We've just seen before that you're not supposed to injure plants and seeds. We've seen this already, and now comes a list of the kind of plants and seeds, right? These include plants propagated from roots, propagated from stems, propagated from cuttings, propagating from joins, and those from regular seeds as the fifth. They refrain from such injury to plants and seeds. This pertains to their ethics. So you can see this is like a commentary on the previous one. It just kind of adds a list of different kinds of plants. And it's kind of fascinating. You can see, first of all, what is interesting here. It talks about ascetics and Brahmins. These were the religious people at the time of the Buddha. The Brahmins were like the
established, the hegemonic religion. These were the people, the priests of ancient Indian society. And then you had like the so-called heterodox ascetics, who were not part of the kind of Brahmins, but they were kind of outside of ordinary society. That is usually where you found the people who would live in the forest and these kind of things. So these are the religious people. And all of these religious people, they lived on offerings of food from other people, just like monastics do in the present day. But when you do that, there is like a deal in a sense. If you are going to live because someone else is supporting your life, then you have an obligation in return to live according to the principles of that life. And if you don't, you're not really doing your part of the bargain. And this is what this is about. This is why this is said in this way. You're not supposed to do certain things if you are a proper ascetic. And that includes engaging in injuring plants and seeds. And then it then gives the various details. And this is how the commentaries work across the board very often. They give you details that are not mentioned in the suttas. They kind of elaborate on things. The problem with elaborating on things is that very often that elaboration will then be specific to that culture and that time. So, for example, when the Buddha says you shouldn't kind of play games, then it lists a long list of games. But those games were played 2,500 years ago. We don't play those games anymore. Actually, you'll be surprised. Some of those games we still play, actually, after 2,500 years. Isn't that amazing? Again, it shows that human beings, we don't really change all that much. But of course, some games are different. So once you start elaborating too much, you're locking in the suttas into a certain time and place. And one of the things that I find so beautiful about the suttas is precisely that they are universal. When you read them, you get the feeling that they don't belong to a particular culture or a particular time. They apply to all humanity, wherever you live in the world, whatever time you lived in. And that is part of what makes the suttas so powerful. So once you start to read these things in the kind of narrow confines of the commentaries, you lose that sense of universality, and then you take away some of this beautiful message of the Buddha. And it's very common for people to read the suttas in that way, and then you kind of narrow it down, and you think nothing else really counts because this is the narrow understanding. But the point of giving very general advice is that then it's up to you to decide how it applies in your society at your time. That means you have to reflect a little bit more. It means you have to take responsibility for your own spiritual practice. Not everything is mentioned in the suttas. And this, to me, is the power of the Buddha's message and the importance of taking responsibility for ourselves in this practice. So, in other words, don't worry too much about these kind of various stems, plants, because again, we know what a plant is. So you don't injure plants and seeds if you are a monastic. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying the food given in faith or in confidence, still engage in storing up goods for their own use. This includes such things as food, drink, clothes, vehicles, bedding, fragrance, and things of the flesh. Amisa usually means food, or it can mean any kind of material good, really. Material things, I would have said, but anyway. They refrain from storing up such goods. This pertains to the ethics. And again, this is kind of one of the qualities of the Arahant. The Arahant is said to have given up the fetter of householdership. This is what you find in the Tevijja Vacchagotta Sutta, I think it is. No, maybe the Mahavacchagotta Sutta. I think it's Majjhima Nikaya 73 or something. It talks about the different qualities of the fully awakened person. And this is kind of an interesting quality. You cannot store up goods as they formerly did in lay life. So an Arahant is incapable of storing up goods. Isn't that kind of fascinating idea? And I think the reason is because the Arahant has given up the idea of me and mine. And storing up goods is obviously about mine. Yeah, I store these things up, I will use them later, don't touch them, this is my stuff. But the arahant doesn't have that feeling. And because it hasn't got that feeling, then of course you can't really store things up in that way, my stuff, to be used for the future. And so the whole idea of living at home and storing up things doesn't work for arahants. And that's why they have really given up that lay life. The way that ordinary people live is no longer possible for arahants. So is it possible to be a lay person, an arahant? Well, not really, because the moment you become an arahant, your mind is monastic, basically. Yeah, that's kind of how you live your life from then on. So even if you don't put on robes, you still kind of are a monastic. So basically you become a monastic straight away when that happens. Am I talking anything sensible? Do people get it? Yeah? Makes sense? Yeah? Eddie? Yeah? Okay? Yeah.
You hear ethics? Oh, Ajahn Brahmali, the word you use here, ethics, okay? No high bed, no makeup, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. In fact, there are precepts in it, taken by the monastics, monks and nuns. Are they the same thing?
Not exactly the same. This is called sila. This is sila here. And the way, I think maybe ethics is a little bit narrow, because you may wonder whether this really is ethical, is a concern of ethics. But sila has this idea of more like habits, and conduct in general. It's a very broad term that refers to much more than just what we normally think of as ethics or morality in English. So, but the rules of the monks are called sikkhapada. Sikkhapada means training rule. That's what they're called. So they are, sikkhapada is part of sila. It's part of it, but sila is more than that.
So this ethics refers, more towards the monks, those monks and nuns in it, or lay people. You can't do all this. How do you expect lay people to do?
Well, this is what I've been. That's the point. This whole thing begins with the ordination. It begins with becoming a monk.
Oh yeah.
So that's what it begins with. So these are for monks. But it's still kind of interesting, right? Because it's interesting because it gives an idea of the kind of mind that this actually is behind this. Because the kind of mind, and that gives an idea of how to think about the world, how to reflect on the world.
What you mean. Yeah.
You
have to think of
so it's
I
interesting.
Understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in seeing shows. This includes such things as dancing, singing, music, performances, and storytelling, clapping, gongs, and kettle drums. Clapping, that's interesting. Beauty pageants, acrobatic and bone-washing displays of corpse workers. What on earth is this? This must be a Bhante Sujato special translation. I have no idea what this is supposed to mean. I have not read his translations all that much. Let's see what Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi has here, because I suspect he has something more comprehensible. So let's see what he has. It's always interesting to get this kind of out of left field translations. So let's see what is on the right field. Where are we? Beauty pageants, clapping. You think it's Olympic Games? Okay, maybe. A combat of elephants, just before acrobatic performances. Okay, so Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi just has acrobatic performances, whereas Bhante Sujato has this long thing instead. So anyway, it is there for our for a reflection, I suppose. I don't think it matters all that much, but anyway, it's there. Battles of elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, goats, rams, chickens, and quails. Star fighting, boxing and wrestling, combat, roll calls of the armed forces, battle formations, and regimental reviews. They refrain from such shows. This pertains to the ethics. So you can see here that again, when the commentaries say these sort of things, it kind of narrows down, because these days, these things are quite different. We don't go to see battles of elephants or anything like that. So things have changed, but some things are the same. Yeah, beauty pageants, they're still the same. Music performance, still the same. Clapping. So this is why in Buddhism we don't normally clap so much. Yeah? We kind of say sadhu instead of something. Yeah? But this is basically for the monastic. So for lay people to clap is not a major thing. So it depends on the situation, I suppose. All right, so let's carry on. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in gambling that causes negligence. This includes such things, or this is actually not just gambling, but really kind of games. Things as checkers with 8 or 10 rows, checkers in the air, hopscotch, spillikins, board games, tip-cat, drawing straws, dice, leaf flutes, toy plows, somersaults, pinwheels, toy measures, toy cards, toy bows, guessing words from syllables, guessing another's thoughts, and imitating musical instruments. Some things also have never changed, right? Some of these things people do on the beach, pinwheels, somersaults. They refrain from such gambling or such games, I suppose, is a better translation there, to my mind. This pertains to their ethics, to their sila. So if you see a monk doing pinwheels on the beach, you know it is a no-no. It would be interesting to do pinwheels in this kind of outfit. I wonder what would happen. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still make use of high and luxurious bedding. This includes such things as sofas, couches, woolen covers, shag-piled, colourful, white, embroidered with flowers, quilted, embroidered with animals, double or single fringed, and silk covers studded with gems, as well as silken sheets, woven carpets, rugs for elephants, horses, or chariots, antelope hide rugs, and spreads of fine deer hide, with a canopy above and red cushions at both ends. They refrain from such bedding. This pertains to their ethics, or if you like, to their conduct, to their general behavior. So beds are reasonably simple usually. So this is of course also relates then to the 8 precepts as well. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in beautifying and adorning themselves with garlands, fragrance, and makeup. This includes such things as applying beauty products by anointing, massaging, bathing, and rubbing, mirrors, ointments, garlands, fragrances, and makeup, face powder, foundation, bracelets, headbands, fancy walking sticks, and containers, rapiers, parasols, fancy sandals, turbans, jewelry, chowries, and long-fringed white robes. They refrain from such beautification and adornment. This pertains to their ethics. Okay, you get the idea? I'm not sure if we need to comment on that. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in low talk. Now this is more interesting. This includes such topics as talk about kings, bandits, and ministers, talk about armies, threats, and wars, talk about food, drink, clothes, and beds, talk about garlands and fragrances, talks about family, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, and countries, talk about women and heroes, street talk and well talk, talk about the departed, motley talk, motley talk. Okay, well, I'm not sure what that means. Random talk? I'm not sure what that. Anyway, tales of the land and sea. Talk about being reborn in this or that state of existence. Basically means being in this way or that way. Is the idea here. They refrain from such low talk. this pertains to their ethics. So this is kind of all the sort of stuff that you find in the newspapers, about wars and armies and kings and ministers, governments, all these kind of things. And so basically the idea here is to basically turn away from the talk about the world and move on to talk about Dhamma instead. That's kind of basically the idea. And in the Vinaya Pitaka and also the Suttas, what you find is that the dodgy monks, they would kind of engage in this kind of talk. And so again, it is the ideal monastic does not talk in such a way. There is no rule against talking in this way, because I guess it's very hard to lay down clear boundaries. But it just gives a general idea of what you're not supposed to do. Is everyone happy with this so far? Yeah? Anyone unhappy? Unhappy over there? Okay.
Just a question.
Yeah, please.
As you're reading about the comfortable beds and cushions, I noticed the amount of sense pleasure that comes up in our lay life, because we enjoy all of those things and we want to acquire such things. So maybe for the monastics, if they think about those things and have them, maybe they don't reduce their sensual pleasure. But for a person who's a layperson, how do we live in the world and still...
I wouldn't worry too much about this. What I would worry about is speech habits and action habits and these kind of things. That's much, much more important to focus on those things. If you feel like sleeping on a simple bed, great, you can. No, you don't feel like that? Okay. That's okay. You just sleep, enjoy your sleep. Get a good night's rest. It really matters a lot. So the most important thing is to sleep in a way where you get enough sleep and good quality sleep. That is the most important thing here. And as long as you have good quality sleep, it means your mindfulness will be better when you wake up, you have more energy, you have more kindness, you have more time for other people. Everything comes from that. Make sure you sleep well. But sometimes sleeping on a simple bed actually is quite nice. I kind of like, sleeping on a simple bed in my kuti here. It kind of feels good. You wake up in the morning, you don't really feel like indulging too much, you kind of, get out of bed and you're fine. I know Ajahn Brahmali, he is now 72 or 3 or whatever, and he's, a little bit kind of, you know what I mean? And he sleeps on he sleeps on some really thin mats on the floor, really, really thin. Actually, maybe now he's got a bit of a mattress now. Actually, I think someone bought him so he has a kind of thin mattress on the floor, and that's where he sleeps. He's very happy like that. In his cave. Have you been to his cave? Yeah? No, haven't been to his cave? Okay, you have missed out. Check out his cave. It's very nice to have a look inside. Eddie.
Can all these ethics, all these things you have to practice, to the extreme, be a form of like training, the mind, towards like equanimity, So like the highest of the 7 factors of enlightenment, is equanimity. There are different types of equanimity too, That is when you end your suffering, But it's hard though. We have to train, What do you think? Is it related to all this?
I mean, sometimes you have to train with these things before you come to equanimity, because these things often lead to equanimity.
All this,
Upekkha is a very high kind of emotional quality,
Because unknown to us, our mind, human mind, we dwell with this external thing, So minus this is looking inwards.
Don't worry too much, Eddie. Just have a good heart. Have a good heart. Be kind, and you'll be fine.
Thank you.
I know you have a good heart already, so that's good. You're on the right track. Okay, so moving on to the next one. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in arguments. They say such things as, I find this paragraph really funny. They say such things as, you don't understand this teaching and training. I understand this teaching and training. What? You understand this teaching and training? You practicing wrongly. I am practicing right. I stay on topic. You don't. You said last what you should have said first. You said first what you should have said last. What you've thought so much about has been disproved. Your doctrine is refuted. Go on, save your doctrine. You are trapped. Get yourself out of this, if you can. You can see how that leads to some unpleasant situation if you speak like that. They refrain from such argumentative talk. This pertains to their ethics. So this is kind of interesting because this is a very human thing to do. Yeah, we attach to our views and our opinions. And if someone disagrees with us, we will argue, we'll get upset. And the reason is because our views and opinions are an extension of our identity. We identify with these things, right? And because they are an extension of who we are, it becomes very difficult to let go of these things. You literally are those views and opinions. They kind of say something about you. And so that's why you get into these arguments. One of the nice things about this little collection of suttas called the Sutta Nipata. It is a book with 5 chapters. The last 2 are called the Atthakavagga and the Parayanavagga. And those last 2 chapters are probably the most ancient part of that collection, and they are roughly same as ancient as the main suttas in the 4 Nikayas. And they are verses. They're more kind of inspirational teachings. And in the verses, it says that if you are a stream enterer or an arahant, you have given up views. Yeah, what does it mean to give up views? Because obviously they have some insight, and if they have some insight, well, they must have some view, right? Because what insight means, you have an understanding of reality. So what does it mean that you have given up views? And what it means, and this becomes obvious once you kind of read broadly in the suttas, it means you have stopped holding on to views. You don't grasp them anymore. Yeah, this is the problem. It's the holding on which is the problem, because when you hold on, then you will have arguments about them. So you kind of no need for you to hold on because you have seen things as they are. So you are chilled. Yeah, if someone disagrees, you just shrug your shoulders, and you know it's their problem, not your problem, and so you're fine. And so that is kind of the what is going on here, and that is one of the ways you can kind of know if someone is a noble person. They will not argue with you, yeah, because they know the truth, yeah, and so they will not argue. Anyone who argues, they have a vested interest in that view because somehow it relates to the sense of self, and that is the problem for that person. So you don't argue anymore. You just, if someone wants to argue, you shrug your shoulders. The Buddha says somewhere that the world argues with me, but I don't argue with the world. Yeah, the Buddha never kind of gets back at people. He just, okay, if you want to argue, it's really your problem. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in running errands and messages. This includes running errands for rulers, ministers, aristocrats, Brahmins, householders, and princes who say, go here, go there, take this, bring that from here. They refrain from such errands. This pertains to their ethics. That gives you an idea, Moon, what is meant by these things. Yeah, kind of doing things for people in society. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still engage in deceit, flattery, hinting and belittling, and using material possessions to chase after other material possessions. They refrain from such deceit and flattery. This pertains to their ethics. You don't use flattery and hinting and deceit and belittling to get your way. You speak rightly for the sake of speaking rightly. The middle section on ethics is finished. So good news, right? So yeah. Any comments on the middle section of ethics? Are you getting fed up with ethics now, anyone? Are you still okay with ethics? Yeah? Now comes the long section. Are you ready for the long section? Yeah? I'm going to go through the long section fairly quickly because the long section is even less interesting than the middle section. Yeah? So for those of you who are fed up, now is the chance to depart if you want to depart. If you want to stay on, you're very welcome to do so. So I'm going to go through the long. It shouldn't take too long. So hang in there just to get the feeling for what's going on. The long section on ethics. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low lore, by wrong livelihood. Yeah, so here the idea, as you can see, you are enjoying the food given in faith, right? This is your livelihood when you become a monastic. Other people support you. And if you earn a living by doing services or whatever for other people, you're not really living up to the bargain. You're supposed to withdraw from the world, not kind of make a living by, all this kind of low lore, as they call it here, or wrong livelihood. Lore here is like an art or some kind of knowledge that you have. Vidya is the Pali word, and Vidya in those days meant like any kind of knowledge you had about the world. So, for example, if you prophesize the future, it would be considered a kind of knowledge. Or if you're reading the signs in the tea leaves, whatever, it's considered a kind of knowledge that you have. And it can take, and people will pay you for providing services in that area. Yeah? So this is wrong livelihood in Buddhism. And as we go through this, even providing medical services, you will see, is actually wrong kind of livelihood. Any way that you make a living by providing services is not appropriate as a monastic. So you learn a living by wrong livelihood. This includes such fields as limb reading, omenology, divining celestial portents, interpreting dreams, divining bodily marks, divining holes in cloth gnawed by mice, fire offerings, ladle offerings, offerings of husks, rice powder, rice, ghee, and oil, offerings from the mouth, blood sacrifices, palmistry, geomancy for building sites. Geomancy is the same as feng shui here. For building sites, fields and cemeteries, exorcisms, earth magic, snake charming, poisons, the lore of scorpions, the rat, the bird, the crow, prophesizing lifespans, chanting for protection. Chanting for protection. Ooh, that is interesting. Divining omens from wild animals, the refrain from such low lore and wrong livelihood. This pertains to their ethics. So this is all kinds of ideas of wrong livelihood. It's very interesting here. The chanting for protection is very interesting, because this is very common in the Buddhist world, and this is what we call paritta chanting. Paritta is a protection, basically. And what is interesting, that even in the suttas, the Buddha gives protection chants, protection against snakes and these kind of things. And the monks would do that, sometimes to protect against wild animals and these kind of things. So this kind of chanting here is really a protection chant that is done as a matter of wrong livelihood, where there is like a deal. You do a protection chant and someone kind of gives you something in return. And so that is kind of not the ideal way of doing things. So you can see it's interesting, because straight away, when you read that, you think, okay, you see things that you wonder, okay, are we doing things rightly? And that's kind of fascinating. It opens your eyes to things that you should reflect on. Yeah, please. So for the geomancy, not done as a service. Just to help out.
Is that a transgression?
It's a good question. So would it be transgression if you do it for... if you do it as a livelihood, it would definitely be transgression. But if you do it just because... I think it's probably a bad idea to get into those kind of things, because usually it tends to become like a business deal, a trade. Okay, you do it, and then you kind of give something in return. Even with chanting for protection, it tends to become that. Someone comes.
Well, it's
and
not
then
to the person, or you can donate to the monastery.
So it depends how you look at it, but it's still maybe it's kind of veering into that territory maybe.
Because I know of some monks who are famous for that.
Famous for that, okay, right, So maybe arguably it's not a problem if they don't, depending on how they do it. But Okay, that's an interesting list anyway, so that is for your reference right there.
Ajahn Brahmali.
Yeah, please.
About the prohibition on exorcisms. It's quite common, isn't it? Like, if someone gets possessed by bad spirits, to seek help from a monk?
Sure, it depends what you mean by exorcism, right? I mean, exorcism often means like killing the spirit or something like that. It's like exorcise the spirit. So it depends on exactly what you do. And I would say if you do some chanting and ask the spirit to leave, through some kindness or whatever, I would argue that it's not really an exorcism. It's just an act of, okay, please leave, this is not a good idea or whatever. I think it's all right. Exorcism to me is usually a more violent kind of thing, whereby you kind of, if there is a spirit, you might kind of kill the spirit or something, yeah. All right, still it's a very interesting sequence there, and it's all, remember it is commentarial as well, so gives an idea what's going on here. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low arts or lore, by wrong livelihood. This includes reading the marks of gems, cloth, clubs, swords, spears, arrows, weapons, women, men, boys, girls, male and female bondservants, elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, chickens, quails, monitor lizards, rabbits, tortoises, or deer. They refrain from such lore, such wrong livelihood. This pertains to their ethics. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low lore and wrong livelihood. This includes making predictions that the king will march forth or march back, that our king will attack and the enemy king will retreat, or vice versa, that our king will triumph, the enemy king will be defeated, or vice versa. And so there will be victory for one and defeat for the other. They refrain from such low lore, such wrong livelihood. This pertains to their ethics, their sila. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low lore and wrong livelihood. This includes making predictions that there will be an eclipse of the moon or sun or stars, that the sun, moon or stars will be in conjunction or in opposition, that there will be a meteor shower, a fiery sky, an earthquake, a thunder, that there will be a rising, a setting, a darkening, a brightening of the moon, sun and the stars. It includes making predictions about the results of all such phenomena. They refrain from such low lore, such wrong livelihood. This pertains to their ethics. This is basically astronomy, some of this. So you don't make astronomical predictions for money or for livelihood. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low lore, by wrong livelihood. This includes predicting whether there will be plenty of rain or drought, plenty to eat or famine, an abundant harvest or a bad harvest, security or peril, sickness or health. It also includes such occupations as arithmetic, accounting, calculating, poetry, and cosmology. They refrain from such low lore, such wrong livelihood. This pertains to their ethics. There are some ascetics and Brahmins, etc., etc. This includes making arrangements for giving and taking in marriage, for engagement and divorce, for the scattering rice inwards or outwards at the wedding ceremony. It also includes casting spells for good or bad luck, treating impacted fetuses, binding the tongue, locking the jaws, charms for the hands and ears, questioning a mirror, a girl or a god as an oracle, worshipping the sun, worshipping the Great One. It's like Brahma something, breathing fire, invoking Siri, the goddess of luck. They refrain from such low lore, such wrong livelihood. This pertains to the ethics. It's an amazing collection of things, isn't it? It's extraordinary. They must have done all of these things in ancient India. Incredible what they got up to. Never heard of a fraction of these things. Yes, please.
Is the underlying trend all about using that interchangeable for something?
That's what it seems like, yeah.
And not to say something like obvious. I mean, if somebody knows about the solar eclipse, right? They just say that's just a solar eclipse and explain the science of it to simple folks. That is not a transgression.
Not really, but I think the point is you shouldn't do as a livelihood, but basically the idea is also you shouldn't get too involved in worldly things, There's two sides to this. So usually if you get really involved in these things, very often it has to do with livelihood somehow. And it kind of has a tendency to end up in that way, you know.
But I can't help but to think, for example, even the King Ajātasattu still asked the Buddha, how to handle the Vajrayana, right?
How to handle
the Vajrayana, how I'm going to attack them, What's the condition that will bring the downfall, right?
Yeah. So then you try to kind of bring the conversation onto a more Dhamma kind of level. That's kind of the idea. And some of the things that the Buddha replies to that question, the kind of the various qualities that are qualities that make for a stable nation, these kind of things are actually Dhamma qualities. So responds in the Dhamma way. He doesn't respond, well, take 1,000 archers and 2,000 swords and arm your men in this way. He doesn't reply in a worldly way. He replies in a Dhamma way.
But the ministers of the king was very astute. The moment the Buddha laid down, immediately see the crack in the armor.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting story for that reason. Yeah. So it's you wonder exactly what's going on there. Yeah.
Or the Buddha say, this Pataliputta, right? It's going to be a great place. Yeah.
I think what happens is often
there's real estate investment tips, right?
I think what's going on there is that the Buddha teaches the Dhamma, and then it's up to others to use that in whatever way they wish. And if they want to use it for bad, well, actually it's their problem. In the end, even the Buddha cannot control people as to the best way to use these teachings. Yeah, and so if they want to use it for bad, okay, what can you do? Yeah.
But to get prospered by the lay people, it isn't a bad thing. Is it a bad thing?
To get prosperous for lay people?
For the lay people, not the monastics.
Yes, but I mean, it's not, sure, but it's not the monk's kind of position to tell people how to get prosperous, how to make money. That's not really the point. The Dhamma is supposed to point you to something more profound or something more interesting. Yeah. Sure. Otherwise the Dhamma loses its kind of its power.
Indeed, it was just a short span of time that place became a great city, great metropolis.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, you can see also that kind of the problem with kind of making these kind of lists, because it starts to become very particular to ancient Indian society, and the many things we do today that are not included there. That doesn't mean that only these things are important. It is general principles are more important here than the specifics, obviously. Yeah. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who, while enjoying food given in faith, still earn a living by low lord by wrong livelihood. This includes rites for propitiation. Propitiation is like when you kind of give something to the gods to make the gods happy. You're kind of paying off the gods, if you like, or sometimes paying off people. For granting wishes, for ghosts, for the earth, for rain, for property settlement, and for preparing and consecrating house sites, rites involving rinsing and bathing, and oblations. It also includes administering emetics, purgatives, expectorants, and phlegmagogues, administering ear oils, eye restoratives, nasal medicines, ointments and counter-ointments, surgery with needle and scalpel, treating children, prescribing roots medicines, and binding on herbs. So here you can see the idea that you're not supposed to act as a doctor. This is kind of what this comes down to here. These are kind of all the medicines of the ancient times, and some of the doctoral procedures as well. They refrain from such lore, such wrong livelihood, this pertains to their ethics. A mendicant thus accomplished in ethics, we are now coming to the end of the long section of ethics. A mendicant thus accomplished in ethics sees no danger in any quarter in regard to their ethical restraint. It's like a king who has defeated his enemies. He sees no danger from his foes in any quarter. In the same way, a mendicant thus accomplished in ethics sees no danger in any quarter in regard to their ethical restraint. So you are complete in ethics. This is what this means. You have no ground to worry that you will not be complete, because you have all your bases covered if you are ethical in this way. But so the idea is the idea of wrong livelihood here. So you can see why this is kind of taken to such an extent is obviously because we're talking about wrong speech, wrong action, and this is really then the wrong livelihood, which is the fifth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which then is expressed in this way. So now you have no worries. That's where the Australian expression "no worries" comes in handy. Yeah, you have no worries at this particular point. So you are good. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience a blameless happiness inside themselves. The entire spectrum. What is it? Sila Kanda, Kevala Sila Kanda. I think spectrum here is Kanda, as in the 5 Kandas. It's a kind of a grouping together of ethics. When you group all of these ethics together, this whole spectrum of ethics, noble ethics. This is kind of beautiful, right? This isn't just ethics. This isn't just kindness in an ordinary way. This is noble ethics. If you act in this way, you are leaning towards nobility. You're leaning towards a noble character. This is this is the Buddha encouraging us, reminding us that there's something really beautiful going on here, something very powerful going on. If you're practicing this way, you're already being noble by taking something like this on, and you are also ennobling yourself through this kind of practice at the same time. That is why it is called noble ethics. And every aspect of this path, if you practice in the right way, is called noble. That is why it is a noble eightfold path, right? You see these words recurring. Arya is the Pali word. Noble ethics, Arya Sila. And when you do practice in this way, then you start to be happy. You experience the blameless happiness. You don't fault find with yourself anymore because there's no fault finding required. There's nothing wrong. Okay, so you have no choice but to be happy about yourself. And you think to yourself, actually, I'm living a pretty good life. Maybe I should kind of be happy with how I live. Why not be happy? And you feel a kind of gladness simply because you know that you're living blamelessly. You're treating other people well. You are a good person. And even if you are one of these people who kind of fault find with yourself, and many people fault find with themselves, as you live in this way, gradually you emerge from that fault finding. You start to see yourself in a very positive light because you know that you are a good person. You don't have a doubt after a while. Then you listen to Ajahn Brahmali, and Ajahn Brahmali says, okay, focus on the positive things. Let go of those bad things. Why thinking about those bad things all the time? And this is one of the kind of, to me, really beautiful things about Ajahn Brahm, this ability to always focus on the positive. This person said this beautiful thing to me. Ajahn Brahm never carries with him the kind of the bad things in life. The dog excretions. Someone would say. He doesn't carry that with him. Why? Because it is bad. It doesn't make any sense. Ajahn Brahm always remembers the good things. Sometimes I say to Ajahn Brahmali, do you remember that happened? No, I can't remember that. He never remembers anything bad. He always remembers the good things. Isn't that great? There's something very positive about that, the ability to always remember the good things in life. Most people, if you ask them, they will carry around all these bad things in their mind for a long time into the future. They will remember what people said. They said that to me, and they will not be able to let go. Ajahn Brahm never remembers when anyone said anything bad. He just lets go straight away. But if you say something kind to him, he might remember that. Isn't that great? There's something really powerful about it. It shows you it is possible to get out of that habit, which is always to remember the bad things. It is possible. We don't have to remember those bad things. We can actually just start to remember the good things. There was an interesting, I think Ajahn Brahma told me about this. He said something about a study that had been done about people, how difficult it is to remember the good things. If you want to praise someone, you have to praise them 10 times, Each bad thing you say, they will remember straight away. But to make sure they remember the good thing, you have to do it 10 times or 5 times or whatever before they remember it. The negative is 10 times as powerful as the positive. That's the problem for most people. And so it is just this bad habit of always remembering the bad, not remembering the positive. It's as if we don't take the positive seriously, but the bad we take really seriously. Why? They have offended me, whatever. But let go of the bad. Let go of these things. Why do people say bad things? Usually because they are in a bad mood, or they've got a rotten day, because they're conditioned in the wrong way. It's got nothing to do with you. Don't take it personally if someone says something bad to you. Yeah, we take it personally. Why? It's crazy. The other person is nuts. That's okay. Let them be nuts, yeah? And maybe they will come out of the nutsiness after a while, yeah, if we kind of treat them in the right way or whatever. So we should never take these things personally. But if someone says something kind to you, that is when they mean it, yeah. We are very difficult for us to say kind things to other people. We always hold back. We are afraid that they're going to take it the wrong way or whatever, so we don't say kind things. So if someone says something kind to you, wow, that is the time to really believe it. So don't believe all the nonsense, don't believe all the negative. It's just people being stupid, people being conditioned, people having bad habits, people having a bad day, whatever it is. But the good things, wow, that really comes from people's heart. Otherwise they wouldn't say it. Okay, sometimes they might flatter you in a kind of bad way, but lots of the time that comes from a real, sincere appreciation of your good qualities when they're kind to you. Never take that for granted. Yeah, it's beautiful when someone says something kind to you, guaranteed that they mean it. And what is so wonderful about being in a Buddhist society like this is that there is lots of good people. Everyone who comes here has good intentions, and that is really worthwhile rejoicing in, to see that in the world. To see those good intentions in yourself. You wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. It's really worthwhile celebrating here. So this then is how you get into this idea of the blameless happiness, right? You remember the good things. And of course, the more good you do, the more easy it is to remember those things. And then there comes a point in your meditation practice, you sit down, you close your eyes, you try to watch the breath, and you just feel good about yourself. This is what they call sila nusati in the suttas, the contemplation or the recollection of your virtue, of your morality. Yeah, it happens automatically. If you are really practicing really, really well, you cannot avoid recollecting that virtue because it is there at the back of your mind. Whether you want to or not, you will feel good about yourself, and then the meditation will work. So sila nusati is not something you should try too hard. If you have to try too hard, it means your mind is not ripe yet. It should be almost an automatic process because you know that you're living a good life. So be really happy with yourself just for coming here. Yeah, this is already good enough to feel good about yourself and to be satisfied with your life, that you're doing something really, really, really worthwhile. That is how a mendicant is accomplished in ethics. The longer section of ethics is finished. Yay! We just saw about clapping before Eddie, so now you are already... Sorry. Are there any last questions before we call it a day? Okay, Eddie.
Me again, Ajahn Brahmali. Yeah. Ajahn Brahmali, I believe in all this, what the Buddha said. He's not stupid in giving these ethics, okay? On the first glance, it may seem extreme, impossible, and stupid, But then if you ponder this thing, okay, he's telling us, giving us asking us to be careful of the dangers of what's going on, okay, to be careful. And what came to my mind is the Buddha's Kalama Sutta. He told us, okay, do not believe, in what is said. I think even himself too. It's only after careful analysis, that you find that it is, true, and okay, and then you believe it. So that is he's just trying to bring us awareness, to what's is happening, which is not right.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So but focus on the focus on the basics. If you focus on too many of the details, sometimes you get lost in all the details. So focus on the basics. Just ask yourself, am I kind right now or not? That's often enough. All you have to ask. Anyone else want to say anything here? Anyone who is utterly dissatisfied or discontent? Or are you? Oh, please. Yeah. Does that mean you're completely dissatisfied and discontent, or does it mean? Please.
When there is a part about not talking about different topics, including family and countries, and I just wondering why the monastic should not talk about those topics.
I think the idea is that you are trying to, as a monastic, you're trying to kind of withdraw from the world, and these things are worldly things. And even the family life, you're trying to withdraw from your family. It doesn't mean that you never talk to them or don't have, you don't support them or whatever. But it's not something that you focus on so much anymore when you become a monastic. And actually, it's very nice. You after a while you become you feel kind of free from all those bonds that most people have. You will it's hard to notice sometimes, but in life you are actually very bonded and to other people around you, and those bonds start to loosen up when you become monastic, because you're staying in the forest by yourself, and you kind of become more independent, and that actually is a very beautiful thing what happens in your mind. You feel freer because of that, and so this is kind of part of the idea behind this. You don't talk about those things, you don't reinforce those bonds. Instead, you try to let them go and loosen them up, and that often creates a better relationship with your family. That's the paradox of it. So, Yes, please. We have to use the microphone, I think. So, great.
My question is, during Buddha's period, if you see the rise of Buddhism that time, mainly it is on the king's patronage.
What? Sorry?
King's or kingdom's patronage only the religion has, to some extent, it was there. So, when we talk about ethics, the different kings or kingdoms, they might have definitely taken the advice from Buddha. So Buddha was not only might have given as a consultant to different kingdoms. So was not in align with the ethics of the monastic life at that time.
The kings.
Yeah, the ethics part. If you see, he is giving a service or maybe a consultancy type of thing to different kingdoms. So it was not in the alignment of ethics. He was not violating the ethics part of monastic life, Buddha.
I see what you mean. Okay. Was he violating the ethics by giving advice to the kings? That's what you're saying. Yeah. It depends what kind of advice. But the Buddha would have given Dhamma advice, right? So he wouldn't really give advice on how to act in the world. And if he gave advice on how to act in the world, then maybe he would have kind of violated some of these things. But he didn't normally do that. He would give advice about how to be a good king, how to support your subjects, or how to be a moral king, and these kind of things. That is what you usually see in the suttas. There is a lot of suttas precisely between the Buddha and King Pasenadi. King Pasenadi of Kosala, he was the most famous king who was a disciple of the Buddha. And usually it's just Dhamma that they talk about. There's not much evidence to talk about anything else. There are things that are a little bit on the side, like when he teaches King Pasenadi how to kind of lose weight. That's kind of one of them. That's kind of a little bit unusual. Yeah, maybe it is. What do you reckon? You think it is? You think? What do you think?
Well, I think it's perfectly fine, but just what is that? I thought it was perfect.
So what do you think? You think the Buddha made a mistake?
Certainly, he's not making a mistake, but it seems to contradict prima facie what's here, which is why I prompted my question. If it's not done for personal gain, probably it's okay.
Remember, this is basically, I think, commentarial. That's one of the things I said at the beginning here. So I don't think this is a final say on what is going on. The commentaries are always kind of, trying to elaborate on things. But so I think it depends. It's a bit more circumstantial. So I think basically you're right. Basically it is about, if you do it as a business deal, then it's a problem.
But if it's just out of love and care. knowing it as a fact, right? And we just say,
but I think you don't, I think another point is not just the fact that it's trade or business, it's also the fact that you don't want to be too involved in the world as well, because you can end up dispensing advice on all kinds of things, spend your whole life doing that. That's also not the point of being a monastic or a Buddha,
So in short, be sparing. Be sparing.
Maybe when when you feel it is required, you do it, and otherwise you kind of don't. Yeah. All right, so let's take a couple of questions from outside. We have Gloria Wong. Hello, Gloria. Sometimes I feel like if I only speak right speech, I basically have not much to talk about with my colleagues and really feel the pressure. Any advices, please? Well, don't do that. Don't feel too much pressure, because if you feel pressure, it becomes difficult to sustain, and it becomes kind of painful to do the right thing. So make it come naturally. Ask yourself, what can I say that is kind today? How can I make the situation better? How can I give a gift to other people through my speech? Think like that. And then gradually you learn to say, be kind and also engage a little bit at the same time. Can I bring you a cup of tea? Would you like a cup of tea today? I'm going to make one for myself. I really want to make one for you. You're such a wonderful colleague. We've been so long together. I never told you how wonderful you are. Now I'm telling you, okay? I'll bring a cup of tea for you. Something like that. Or just some kind of nice compliment to somebody because something is right or whatever. There's always nice things we can say. Or just speak in a nice tone of voice. That is often enough. If you are around someone who talks in a pleasant way, that can already be settling, already be nice, because sometimes people don't do that well enough. So be at ease. That is very important, and don't try too hard to do this kind of right speech. If you try too hard, it's a sign that it is not coming naturally, and if it isn't coming naturally enough, then it sometimes becomes counterproductive. So be wise as well in how you do these things. Then we have from Ronan in Ireland, who says, please ask Ajahn Brahmali. Okay, I will ask him. So, Ajahn Brahmali, okay. If the Buddha was around today, would he have Facebook and a Twitter account? Thank you. Would he have a Facebook and Twitter account? That's a good question. Would he have a Facebook and Twitter account? He would be living the Buddha lived most of the time in the forest, right? So would he have mobile internet in the forest, in his kuti? I think very unlikely that the Buddha would have a Facebook and Twitter account. Maybe he would have a disciple who had a Twitter account, and he would say to the disciple every day, he would give him some kind of wise statement to put on the Twitter account every day because the disciple said so. Or maybe the disciple wouldn't say anything about the Twitter account, he would just have it in secret, and he would go to the Buddha every day, and whatever the Buddha said, he would put that on Twitter. Maybe that's how it would work. But I think it's very unlikely that the Buddha would have Twitter and Facebook account. In fact, I think that's almost impossible because it is very worldly. But maybe it could be used in a broader sense, a bit like the Buddhist society here uses a Facebook account to kind of get the information out and these kind of things. Okay, that is it for today. So let us pay homage to the Triple Gem.